There are moments in history when a single individual story ripples outward and forces us to reconsider everything we think we know. For millions, that moment came in the winter of 1985, when Whitley Strieber experienced what he later described as an encounter with beings not of this earth. At the time, Strieber was already a respected novelist, known for works of horror and suspense. He was not a fringe voice, was not a man seeking publicity in the UFO community. He was, in many ways, an ordinary person living an ordinary life. But what happened that winter, in a secluded cabin in upstate New York, would forever alter the course of his life and ignite one of the most debated stories of alien contact in modern times. In his best-selling book Communion, Strieber recounted that he was taken from his home by non-human entities. He described them with large, dark eyes, small, fragile bodies, and an uncanny presence that seemed to reach directly into his mind. They were neither robotic nor demonic, neither fully angelic nor monstrous. They were something else entirely. The power of his story was not just the strangeness of the beings themselves, but the raw human honesty with which he told it. He admitted his fear, he admitted his confusion, and he admitted the possibility that he could be losing his grip on reality. Yet over time, the consistency of his experiences and the courage with which he shared them gave a voice to countless others, who had quietly endured similar encounters. What set Strieber apart was the way he interpreted his contact. Unlike many who frame extraterrestrials purely as invaders or scientists conducting cold experiments, Strieber came to believe that these beings, whom he often called the visitors, were more complex. To him, they were not simply extraterrestrials traveling in from another star system. They were perhaps something far stranger, beings existing at the boundary between physical and spiritual reality. Their technology seemed less mechanical and more like an extension of consciousness itself. They could pass through walls. They could manipulate perception. They could interact with thought as easily as we interact with words. Over time, Strieber began to see them not merely as tormentors, but as teachers. Unsettling teachers who seemed to be initiating him, and perhaps humanity, into a greater awareness of the universe. He wondered if they had always been with us, appearing in different forms across history. Fairies, angels, jinn, or even the gods of myth. Were they shapeshifters? Were they beings who simply reflected whatever imagery human culture could most easily recognize? This shift from fear to interpretation made Strieber's journey not just about abduction, but about consciousness itself. At the heart of Strieber's experiences is a paradox. On one hand, he was terrified. His encounters often involved paralysis, loss of control, and the violation of boundaries so intimate that they shattered his sense of safety. On the other hand, these same experiences left him with a profound sense of awe, as if he had glimpsed a larger reality that could not be explained in purely physical terms. This is what makes Strieber's testimony so unique. He never sugarcoated the trauma. He never claimed the visitors were purely benevolent. He spoke openly of the terror he felt, of the way his life was disrupted, of how difficult it was to hold on to ordinary reality after coming face to face with something so incomprehensible. And yet, he also came to see that this fear might be part of the initiation, that the shattering of the human ego, the dismantling of our assumptions, was the very doorway through which transformation could occur. Many experiencers have echoed this. The initial terror of abduction gives way to a slow, dawning realization that the visitors may not be here to harm us, but to force us into growth. Like stern teachers, they challenge us, dismantle us, and reconstruct our sense of what it means to be human. Strieber's story is not just about one man and his encounters. It opens a larger question. What if humanity is being nudged toward an expanded understanding of reality? What if the boundary between death, mystical experience, and extraterrestrial contact is thinner than we think? In many ways, Strieber's testimony sets the stage for the great convergence we'll explore in this journey. The overlap between near-death experiences, alien contact, and the technologies that whistleblowers like Bob Lazar and Stephen Greer describe. For Strieber, the visitors were never simply aliens in spacecraft. They were participants in a greater drama, one that includes our souls, our deaths, and our possible future as a species ready to join a larger cosmic community. As we step forward, keep in mind the duality that Strieber embodied. the raw, unfiltered fear of being taken against his will, and the equally powerful wonder of realizing that the universe is filled with intelligence far beyond our comprehension. It is this paradox of terror and awe that lies at the threshold of the human encounter with the unknown. And now we turn to the next thread in this tapestry. What near-death experiences reveal about beings of light, about the crossing of dimensions, and about the startling similarities between the journey beyond death and the accounts of contact with non-human intelligence. Imagine the moment when the body fails, when life as you know it seems to slip away, and yet consciousness persists. For those who have had near-death experiences, this threshold is both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Time dilates. Colors shine with a vividness unknown in waking life, and the mind, freed from the confines of flesh, seems to expand into realms that are at once familiar and utterly alien. For decades, researchers like Raymond Moody, Bruce Grayson, and Pim Van Lommel have documented thousands of NDEs, noting remarkable consistencies across cultures, ages, and belief systems. People describe tunnels of light, life reviews, encounters with beings of radiant intelligence, and the feeling of unconditional love. And yet when these accounts are compared with modern reports of extraterrestrial contact, astonishing overlaps appear. The beings of light described in NDEs often resemble Strieber's visitors in certain qualities: intelligence, presence, and a perception of consciousness that transcends the human. Could it be that what we call aliens and what we call angels or guides are manifestations of the same underlying intelligence? Are NDEs and abduction experiences different access points to a shared cosmic reality? Those who return from NDEs almost universally describe encounters with entities whose wisdom is absolute, whose perception seems to extend beyond time and space. Some are recognized as deceased loved ones. Others are entirely unfamiliar, yet their presence conveys both authority and profound compassion. What strikes researchers and experiencers alike is that these beings do not rely on language in the conventional sense. Communication is direct, telepathic, instantaneous, and full of layered meaning. They transmit understanding, not words. Their technology, if it can be called that, is a form of consciousness manipulation, shaping perception, bending time, and guiding souls. Strieber's visitors exhibit many of these same qualities. They communicate mind to mind, understand intent before it is acted upon. Their actions often feel surgical, purposeful, and yet beyond human morality. And while the initial experience can be terrifying, there is often a deeper message, a lesson, an initiation into the nature of reality. It is here that the line between extraterrestrial and near-death intelligence begins to blur. Both challenge the human ego. Both expand awareness. Both suggest that consciousness itself is the bridge, the technology, and the ultimate frontier. Near-death experiences frequently include phenomena that resemble what contactees report in alien abductions. Beings guide travelers along paths, reveal higher truths, and sometimes transport them instantaneously to distant realms. Locations that are experienced as real and tangible, yet defy ordinary physics. Some experiencers report dimensional corridors or light tunnels that bear a striking similarity to descriptions of alien craft interior spaces. There is a sense of movement without motion, of traveling vast distances in an instant. In NDE research, this is often interpreted as consciousness leaving the body. In alien contact narratives, it is described as transport through advanced technology. This overlap raises an unsettling question. Are our current understandings of physics, time, and space incomplete? Might it be that consciousness itself, unfettered by the physical body, can navigate realities that humans perceive only dimly? The parallels extend further. Just as Strieber's visitors appear to have an agenda, to teach, to challenge, to prepare, so to do the beings in NDEs emphasize lessons in morality, compassion, and the interconnectedness of life. They show the soul the consequences of thought and action. They reveal that the universe operates according to principles far subtler and more profound than those of human politics, economics, or war. Many NDE experiencers describe arriving in realms that feel higher, more real than earthly existence, yet still bound by structure and intelligence. Some see geometric cities, or energy patterns that function as living ecosystems. Others are met by beings who seem curious, playful, or meticulous in their observations. Compare this with Strieber's accounts. The visitors often appear in environments that are simultaneously ordinary and extraordinary. Cabins, bedrooms, or dimly lit laboratories that transform into spaces of profound cosmic significance. In both cases, the line between physical reality and consciousness-generated reality dissolves. This convergence suggests a startling possibility that NDEs are not only glimpses into an afterlife, but also interactions with the same intelligences who traverse the cosmos, who visit humans for purposes we are only beginning to comprehend. These beings, whether called angels, guides, or extraterrestrials, may operate in a dimension beyond ordinary perception, accessible through trauma, death, or altered states. If consciousness itself is a medium, then perhaps the technologies described by whistleblowers like Bob Lazar or Stephen Greer are not entirely mechanical. Lazar describes propulsion systems that manipulate gravity, that bend spacetime and allow craft to move instantaneously across vast distances. Greer speaks of CE5 protocols, where human intention alone is sufficient to contact extraterrestrial intelligence. Could NDEs represent the ultimate technology? The natural capacity of consciousness to navigate dimensions, can interact with intelligent beings and perceive the machinery of the cosmos? In this sense, death becomes less an end and more a training ground, a threshold where the mind learns the tools of travel, perception, and communication that physical humans will one day replicate with machines. In other words, what the body perceives as alien craft, what the mind perceives as a tunnel of light, be different manifestations of the same underlying principle: intelligence moving freely through space, time, and consciousness. The insights of NDEs extend far beyond speculation about aliens or technology. They offer profound philosophical guidance. Life is interconnected. Every thought, action, and choice has repercussions beyond immediate perception. Death is not annihilation, but a gateway, a portal to higher understanding. Love, compassion, and awareness are the currencies of the higher dimensions. Consciousness is malleable. It is the bridge between the physical and the non-physical. Striebers, visitors, NDE beings, and human consciousness itself converge here. Each challenges humanity to expand its perception, to recognize that fear is often the gatekeeper to understanding, and that initiation into cosmic awareness comes at the edge of the unknown. And if consciousness is a vehicle, what is the role of technology? What can we learn from those who claim to have reverse-engineered craft, manipulated gravity, and bridged impossible distances? In the next chapter, we will turn to Bob Lazar, his claims of secret programs, advanced propulsion systems, and the tantalizing possibility that humanity may already possess, or at least have glimpsed, technologies capable of transcending physical limitation. In the late 1980s, a man named Bob Lazar emerged from the shadows of secrecy to tell a story that would electrify the UFO community and challenge conventional understanding of physics. Lazar claimed that he had been hired to work at a site known as S4, a hidden facility near the infamous Area 51 in Nevada. There, he said, he was assigned to study and reverse engineer extraterrestrial spacecraft. What Lazar described was not merely alien in design, but alien in principle. The craft he worked on did not use chemical fuel, did not rely on conventional engines, and did not behave according to Newtonian expectations. Instead, the craft seemed to manipulate gravity itself, bending the very fabric of space-time to move effortlessly across the sky. The implications of this testimony were staggering. If even a fraction of the Bob Lazar account were true, it would mean that humanity had, or had glimpsed, a technology that defies our current understanding of physics. A technology that could render propulsion, energy, and space travel almost trivial. Central to Bob Lazar's claims was the idea of gravity propulsion. Unlike conventional engines, which rely on combustion or electromagnetic forces, Lazar's craft allegedly created its own gravitational field, essentially pulling or pushing itself through the universe by distorting space-time. Imagine holding a sheet of rubber and placing a heavy ball in its center. The ball creates a dip, warping the fabric around it. Lazar described the craft as being able to generate such a dip artificially, not by mass, but by harnessing an element called element 115, a substance previously unknown to science. by generating an artificial gravitational field. The craft could, in effect, fold space, allowing instantaneous or near-instantaneous travel across vast distances. To an observer, the craft would appear to vanish and reappear, to move in ways that defy all expectation, hovering without sound, darting at impossible speeds, and turning sharply without inertia. For Lazar, this was not speculation. He claimed to have witnessed, handled, and tested the technology. Noting the extreme sensitivity of the equipment and the precise calculations required to maintain stability, even small miscalculations could be catastrophic, throwing the craft off its intended trajectory or causing a collapse of the artificial gravity field. At the heart of this technology was element 115, substance that Lazar described as extraordinarily dense and energetic. According to him, it served as the fuel or catalyst for the craft's gravity-manipulating engine. When energized, it could generate a gravitational field strong enough to bend space-time around the vehicle. When Lazar first disclosed this element, it was unknown to science. Skeptics dismissed him outright. Yet decades later, scientists successfully synthesized a version of element 115 in laboratories. Though in minuscule quantities that could not replicate the stable, high-energy behavior Lazar described, the tantalizing question remains. Was Lazar describing a naturally occurring form of element 115? One stable at room temperature and capable of the extraordinary effects he claimed? If so, the implications extend far beyond propulsion. They hint at technologies capable of energy generation, interstellar travel, and possibly manipulation of the very fabric of reality. This is where Lazar's story intersects with the themes we explored earlier. If consciousness itself is a vehicle capable of navigating dimensions, and perhaps the technology Lazar described is a physical manifestation of principles that NDE experiencers and contactees have glimpsed. Consider this. Lazar's craft could fold space-time, creating instantaneous travel. NDE experiencers report being transported vast distances through light tunnels in moments. Both phenomena suggest that movement through space may not require conventional engines at all, but an understanding of how consciousness interacts with the underlying geometry of the universe. Similarly, the directness and intelligence of Strieber's visitors, their ability to manipulate perception and act with precision beyond human comprehension, mirrors the way Lazar's craft responds to extremely subtle inputs and navigates space with intent. The line between living intelligence and technology becomes, in this context, surprisingly thin. Lazar also discussed the human effort to reverse engineer alien craft. Despite access to the technology, human understanding was incomplete. Scientists at S4 struggled to replicate the effects, constrained by conventional physics and the limitations of human cognition. This highlights a key theme. Intelligence is only useful when it aligns with understanding. The craft obeys laws that are consistent but alien to human intuition. Gravity manipulation, space-time folding, and energy generation at unprecedented scales require a grasp of principles that we may not yet possess. Lazar emphasized that the craft was not powered by fuel in any conventional sense. Instead, it accessed energy from the vacuum itself, tapping into what modern physics calls the zero-point field. This concept resonates strongly with Stephen Greer's claims that free energy, zero-point energy, and consciousness-driven technologies are real, but suppressed from public knowledge. Human initiation through technology, the technology Lazar described, is not merely mechanical. It is a form of initiation. Just as Strieber's encounters forced him to expand consciousness, and just as NDEs push the mind beyond the physical, contact with alien technology challenges humanity's assumptions. It forces us to confront the limits of knowledge, to accept that the universe is far more malleable than we believed, and to recognize that intelligence, whether biological or technological, can operate on scales beyond ordinary perception. This convergence suggests a profound possibility that human consciousness, when aligned with technology, could access dimensions that today seem fantastical. That the beings who guide us in NDEs, who visit in abduction narratives, and who appear in CE5 protocols may be pointing toward the same principles Lazar glimpsed. The manipulation of space, time, and energy through both mind and machine. Bob Lazar's testimony leaves us with both awe and uncertainty. If true, it shows a civilization capable of bending the universe to its will. It also challenges our ability to understand, replicate, or even responsibly use such power. We are going to explore Stephen Greer's work, a complementary approach to the same mysteries. Where Lazar focuses on mechanical craft, Greer emphasizes conscious interaction with extraterrestrial intelligence. The principles of CE5 and the hidden technologies suppressed from public knowledge. Together, these perspectives form a more complete picture of the interface between human potential, advanced technology, and the larger cosmic order. In the early 1990s, Dr. Stephen Greer, an emergency physician turned researcher, began speaking publicly about a subject most of his peers dismissed: extraterrestrial contact. Unlike many in the UFO community, Greer's approach was not rooted in fear or speculation. He framed the subject as a matter of consciousness, technology, and human destiny. Greer founded the Disclosure Project, an initiative that brought forward high-ranking military officers, government insiders, and scientists, each willing to testify under oath that extraterrestrial technologies had been recovered, reverse-engineered, and hidden from the public. But Greer's message went beyond secrecy. His central claim was that humanity is already capable of contact, not just through machines, but through the power of mind itself. Where Bob Lazar spoke of craft bending gravity, Greer suggested something more radical: that consciousness is itself the most advanced form of technology. Greer's CE5 protocols, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, involve groups of people entering meditative states, projecting coherent thought and signaling intent to extraterrestrial intelligence. According to Greer, such contact has occurred repeatedly, verifiable phenomena, strange lights, electromagnetic signatures, and even craft appearing in response to the group's focused attention. In this framework, aliens are not simply mechanical visitors piloting advanced craft. They are participants in a universe where consciousness itself is the connective tissue. To communicate with them is not merely to flash lights into the sky, but to align intention, thought, and energy with a broader cosmic intelligence. This perspective resonates with the NDE insights we explored earlier. Beings of light connect with us through direct, loving communication, just like Stephen Greer's groups do when they reach out during the CE5 protocol. The boundaries between meditation, mystical experience, and alien contact begin to dissolve. The suppression of free energy. Greer also argues that extraterrestrial technology has already been recovered and studied by human institutions. Claims that within the hidden corners of black-budget projects lies the solution to humanity's greatest crises: free energy. According to Greer, the same principles Lazar described, gravity manipulation, zero-point energy, and space-time distortion, have already been replicated in classified labs. These breakthroughs, if released, could end fossil fuel dependence, eradicate poverty, and heal the environment. But herein lies the great barrier: secrecy. Greer asserts that entrenched interests, military contractors, oil companies, and global elites, suppress this knowledge to preserve existing power structures. The very technologies that could elevate humanity into a post-scarcity civilization remain locked away, hidden behind layers of national security. This introduces a sobering paradox. The path to humanity's next evolutionary step is not only about contact with extraterrestrials, but about overcoming our own fear, greed, and attachment to control. See, one of Greer's most striking contributions is his emphasis on individual empowerment. Unlike the image of abductees taken against their will, Greer describes contact as an active invitation, a cooperative relationship that anyone can engage in with the right training and mindset, through meditation, coherent thought, and group alignment. CE5 participants report experiences that mirror the awe of NDEs and the presence of Strieber's visitors, but without the terror. Instead, the encounters often carry a sense of collaboration, mutual curiosity, and hope. In this model, extraterrestrials are not here to dominate humanity, but to invite us into a galactic community. The barrier is not their secrecy, but ours. We must choose whether to remain a fearful, warlike species, or to step into maturity as partners in a larger cosmic ecosystem. At first glance, Bob Lazar's testimony and Stephen Greer's protocols seem to inhabit different universes. Lazar described physical craft, metallic hulls, and exotic fuels. Greer describes meditation, consciousness fields, and interdimensional communication. Yet on closer inspection, they converge. Lazar's craft bent gravity. Greer's contact sessions bend perception. Both involve manipulation of the underlying structure of space and time. Both suggest that reality is not fixed, but pliable, responsive to intention and design. It may be that the visitor's craft are not merely machines, but extensions of consciousness, technologies designed to interface directly with the mind. Much like NDE realms respond instantly to thought. In this way, Greer and Lazar are describing different facets of the same phenomenon, a civilization whose science has already united mind and matter, thought and machine. The initiation of humanity. Greer's work ultimately frames disclosure not as a revelation from above, but as an initiation from within. To make contact is not only to prove aliens exist, but to prove that we are ready. Ready to transcend fear, ready to relinquish the addiction to secrecy, ready to evolve from a planetary species to a cosmic one. This initiation parallels the personal transformations of Strieber and NDE experiencers. Strieber was shattered and rebuilt by contact, and survivors return with new values and renewed purpose. Humanity, too, may be facing such a threshold. The presence of extraterrestrial intelligence is not just about technology or science. It is about whether we are prepared to grow into the responsibilities of interstellar citizenship. The shadow side. Militarization and control. Greer also warns of a darker path. He claims that elements within government have staged or planned to stage false flag events such as simulated alien attacks. This is so that the military can justify militarization of space and to preserve secrecy. In this narrative, the very awe-inspiring reality of contact could be weaponized, distorted into a tool of fear rather than awakening. This is where disclosure becomes not just an academic pursuit, but a moral imperative. If humanity misuses this knowledge, we risk repeating our cycles of violence on an interstellar stage. But if we embrace it with wisdom, we could transcend those cycles altogether. Stephen Greer's message brings us to a profound crossroads. On one hand, secrecy, suppression, and fear hold us back. On the other hand, openness, consciousness, and love invite us forward. As we move into the final section of this journey, we must ask, what does it all mean? When we combine Strieber's testimony, NDE insights, Lazar's technology, and Greer's protocols, a larger picture emerges. A picture that suggests extraterrestrials are not merely visitors, but participants in the unfolding destiny of humanity. Here we will weave these threads together, exploring whether ETs are the gatekeepers of death, the initiators of consciousness, and the architects of our next evolutionary step. We will consider the role of humanity in a universe alive with intelligence and what it means for our collective future. When the name Stephen Greer enters the conversation, the tone shifts. Whereas Whitley Strieber embodies the deeply personal and often traumatic side of contact, and Bob Lazar represents the clandestine technological angle, Greer steps forward with a kind of missionary energy. His message is not whispered in private but broadcast in a call to action. That humanity can make direct, conscious contact with intelligent civilizations beyond Earth, and that this contact will redefine what it means to be human. Greer's story begins not in a desert hangar or through a strange midnight abduction, but on a meditation cushion. A physician by training, he turned toward the idea that consciousness itself was the bridge between worlds. Through what he calls CE5 protocols, Greer and groups of volunteers gather beneath the night sky, practicing a form of coherent meditation and intention setting aimed at summoning extraterrestrial craft. And to his followers, this is not mere wishful thinking. Reports abound of strange lights, structured craft, and telepathic exchanges occurring during these sessions. The underlying claim here is profound, that consciousness is a universal field, and that advanced civilizations are not communicating through crude radio signals, but through the very substrate of reality itself. In other words, the universe is not silent. It is alive, intelligent, and interactive, and the human mind, when attuned, can function as both receiver and transmitter. This resonates powerfully with the accounts of near-death experiencers, who often describe instantaneous telepathic knowing, communication through images and pure thought. and a sense of oneness that transcends language. If NDEs show us that consciousness can operate beyond the body, Greer suggests that this same principle allows us to bridge the vastness of space. But Greer's message doesn't stop at meditation. He has also positioned himself as a whistleblower, arguing that governments and corporations have long suppressed technologies that could transform civilization. Chief among these are so-called zero-point energy devices. Energy drawn not from combustion or fuel, but from the very quantum vacuum of space itself. This, Greer argues, is why UFO secrecy is maintained, not to protect people from panic, but to protect trillion-dollar industries from collapse. If humanity understood that limitless clean energy was possible, the economic and geopolitical structure of the world would be upended overnight. Here again we see a striking connection. Bob Lazar described an energy source so exotic that it could bend gravity itself. Near-death experiencers describe realms of light, where movement requires no propulsion and energy flows freely without depletion. Greer's disclosures echo these themes, that the universe itself is not bound by scarcity, but abundance. It is only human systems, political, economic, psychological, that insist on limitation. Critics, of course, abound. Many see Greer as overly sensational, pointing to his grand claims without sufficient evidence. Of course, there isn't going to be evidence that the military openly acknowledges. If there were, there would be no need for congressional hearings and ongoing efforts to extract information from government agencies. The very fact that Congress is pressing for disclosure suggests that evidence exists, but remains hidden from the public. And yet, whether one believes every story or not, the philosophical implications remain fascinating. Greer insists that humans are not passive recipients of contact, but active participants. We are not waiting for disclosure to be handed down from shadowy elites. Rather, disclosure begins in the stillness of our own minds. Beneath a starry sky, when we dare to reach out and recognize our shared place in the cosmos. There is also a deep psychological and spiritual inversion in Greer's narrative compared to Strieber's. Strieber's encounters often carried an undercurrent of dread and bewilderment, as if the visitors operated on a wavelength too alien for comfort. Greer, however, reframes the relationship as one of empowerment and even kinship. For him, the visitors are benevolent, patient, and waiting for humanity to grow up, to mature past its tribal wars, its nuclear weapons, its environmental destruction, and its obsession with secrecy. In this light, Greer becomes almost prophetic. He suggests that our survival as a species depends not only on new technology, but on a leap in consciousness. Without it, free energy and advanced craft would simply become new tools for war and domination. With it, however, they could usher in what he calls a Type 1 civilization, a planetary culture united in peace, capable of joining the galactic community. Whether one agrees with his optimism or not, Greer introduces a vital dimension to the discussion. He reminds us that the extraterrestrial mystery is not just about ships in the sky or materials in hidden vaults. It is about us. About what kind of species we are becoming, and whether we are ready to face the truth that has been knocking at our door for decades. And in this, we see how Strieber, Lazar, and Greer form a triad of perspectives. Strieber teaches us the intimacy and terror of contact, the way it fractures identity and forces us into new questions. Lazar unveils the machinery, the cold nut sandbolts reality of ships and reactors and technology far beyond our grasp. And Greer brings in the spiritual dimension, insisting that consciousness itself is the technology, that our very thoughts and intentions are the engine of connection. Together, these perspectives paint a picture not of science fiction, but of a species on the cusp of initiation. 1 foot in fear, 1 foot in wonder, and the horizon of possibility opening wide. The story of human contact with extraterrestrials cannot be told without Stephen Greer. Unlike Whitley Strieber, who was thrust into the mystery against his will, or Bob Lazar, who found himself inside secret facilities and barely escaped with his life. Greer took a different path, one of initiation, discipline, and conscious choice. Greer's contribution rests not only in what he claims to know, but in what he teaches. His concept of CE5, close encounters of the fifth kind, is revolutionary. The idea that human beings can actively invite contact with non-human intelligence through meditation, coherent thought, and unity of intention. To Greer, consciousness itself is the true technology. If Lazar speaks of gravity drives and Strieber of beings who walk through walls, Greer suggests that the bridge between their accounts is the mind itself. The human mind is not merely a receiver of experiences, but a projector into the field of reality. By aligning thought and emotion in peace, Greer argues, contact can be established without fear and without the secrecy of government filters. But Greer goes further. He insists that humanity already possesses technologies capable of ending poverty, eliminating fossil fuels, and lifting civilization to a new stage. He names these technologies: zero-point energy, gravity field manipulation, and advanced propulsion systems. He accuses hidden projects of suppressing them for reasons of control and profit. This is where Greer's vision intersects Lazar's revelations. If Lazar is correct about exotic materials and gravitational drives, then Greer's insistence on suppressed breakthroughs makes sense. If Strieber is correct about the visitor's spiritual presence, then Greer's emphasis on consciousness as the key becomes equally logical. In Greer, Lazar, and Strieber, three puzzle pieces begin to align. The choice is before us: secrecy and separation, or disclosure and initiation. Humanity stands, as Greer puts it, on the threshold of becoming an interstellar civilization. When we bring together Whitley Strieber's abduction and communion experiences, the luminous teachings of near-death encounters, Bob Lazar's astonishing technological disclosures, and Stephen Greer's consciousness-driven contact movement, a larger picture emerges. It is a picture not of aliens invading Earth, but of humanity awakening to its own next stage. Strieber shows us that contact is deeply personal, psychological, and transformative. NDEs remind us that the boundaries between life and death, human and divine, are thinner than we imagine. Lazar reveals that technology far beyond our science is already here, waiting to be understood. Greer insists that the key lies not only in machines but in the awakened human mind. Together, they tell us that contact is not simply about UFOs in the sky. It is about our relationship to reality itself. The visitors, the beings of light, the propulsion systems, the suppressed technologies, all of these are fragments of a deeper truth. Consciousness is fundamental, and we are learning how to wield it. Perhaps extraterrestrials are not strangers at all, but older brothers and sisters in a cosmic family, waiting for us to grow into awareness. Perhaps the tunnels of NDEs and the corridors of alien craft are entryways into the same multidimensional universe. Perhaps the true disclosure is not a government press conference, but the awakening of humanity to its own role in the cosmos. The future is unwritten, but one thing is certain: we are no longer alone, and we never were. The question is no longer whether extraterrestrials exist. The question is whether humanity is ready to evolve into its rightful place among them. Thank you for watching. And right after you click the subscribe button and the notification bell, run outside and look up. You never know. First contact could be happening now. See you in the next video.